So one of the areas that we've been interested in for many years and is certainly of wide interest, I think, today, has to do with systems of innovation at the local and regional level. And because we have recognized, as have many other researchers, that proximity matters to innovation, and clusters of activity, physically co-located activities, often have, despite all of the trends towards globalization and so on, these clusters of activity, physically proximate activities, have many advantages when it comes to innovation. And of course, in many of these cases, universities may play a significant role, probably not the dominant role, although there are a few cases where the university is a dominant player in local innovation systems. But in many cases, it's an important supporting player, providing research findings, perhaps more importantly, providing trained and educated people. And we've been interested for a number of years and have carried out research on how these local systems of innovation work and what role universities play in them. And what we've discovered, and we've studied this phenomenon of local innovation systems in many locales around the world, actually about 25 in different countries, in Europe, in Asia, and several city regions here in the United States. What we've discovered is that these local systems of innovation actually work quite differently depending on which industry you're talking about. And I think the most familiar, certainly the most widely the approach that people seek to emulate most is what we see around here and in Silicon Valley, where there is a rapid rate of new industries being invented, and that somehow seems to be accelerating, in fact, in here and in Silicon Valley and a few other innovation hotspots. But that's not the only way in which innovation takes place. And it's certainly, if one looks at other parts of the country and other parts of the world, what one finds is vigorous systems of innovation, but it's not about the invention of the next internet sector or the next social media sector. It's about upgrading existing industries. And if you look at the role that universities play in those locations, it's actually quite different from what they do, what, say, MIT or Stanford or Berkeley does in these innovation hotspots. And so one piece of research that is developing and continuing is to define, develop, characterize, understand the ways in which different kinds of local innovation systems operate, and what are the conditions under which different kinds of innovation systems can be more or less successful. And that is a piece of research that is organized both across different locations around the world and across different kinds of industries. And in that process, or in that research, we spend a lot of time with companies as well as local and provincial governments, characterizing the performance, the behavior and the performance of what we call local innovation systems. There have been, over the last decade, many visitors to MIT and to the Industrial Liaison Program to learn how MIT works, and indeed, how can we emulate in our home region the successes of East Cambridge or the successes of Silicon Valley. It was actually that many of those groups, on their way to the Industrial Liaison Program or on their way from the Industrial Liaison Program offices, happened to stop in the Industrial Performance Center. And we talked to them, and actually it was listening to a number of these people, these visitors to MIT, talk about their hopes and aspirations and what they had learned from their visits to Cambridge that led us to think that, well, now wait a minute, maybe it isn't the right thing for these visitors to do to try to emulate what they see here. Maybe there are things that they should be doing that aren't exactly emulative of what they see here, that have more to do with the conditions in their own home economies. And so that actually, the experience of talking with many of the visitors to MIT, coming here in the hope of emulating what we have been able to create here, was what stimulated the Local Innovation Systems project that we embarked on several years ago and actually continue to work on at the Industrial Performance Center. And it was by studying the innovation systems in Helsinki, in other cities in Finland, in Germany, in Japan, in Taiwan, in the UK and several other countries, that we realized that actually the spectrum of local innovation-driven economic development is actually much broader than you would see if the only place you stopped in at was East Cambridge. And I think what we have tried to do is to broaden the menu of possibilities that leaders in these communities have available to them as they think about how they can harness innovation to drive their economies forward.